right. Let's get back to it. Hey, how we doing over here? It is a Tuesday, a little past 8 o'clock. We're doing a little bit of a semi-late. It's not super late, but I have a really good excuse. I had the best buffalo chicken that I've had in, half a year. So I took my sweet time and I ate all of it, and I really shouldn't have. But I ate all of the pieces that there were because it was fantastic. And it delayed everything. My fingers were gross and my face was gross, so I had to wash off, and I had to finish my prep for the stream. So I'm brewing coffee right now. I don't know if you can see. Let me get out of the way. All the way in the back there, you can see right there. Coffee's being made right now as we speak. It's pretty fantastic. I could smell the hazelnut. I could smell the pumpkin spice and the dark roast. But it's all decaf. And I actually just got the actual good decaf, but I forgot to bring it. So 2 goals for this week: get good decaf coffee, hopefully from Java Love, we'll see. And the second one is to actually haul the New England hazelnut decaf over here so that I can have tolerable coffee. I mean, this is good. It's tolerable. God, I'm so spoiled with coffee. It's tolerable. But man, it's nothing like a really good brew of coffee with pumpkin spice in it. It is pumpkin spice season. I got the official message on my Starbucks app, so that's a thing. I can say that I put pumpkin spice in my coffee now, and you know, you don't think it's weird that I do that all year. And it's actual pumpkin spice, by the way. It's not pumpkin spice creamer or pumpkin spice whatever nonsense you people put in your coffee. Don't put cream in your coffee. If you need to put milk or cream in your coffee, it's not good enough coffee. Just either give up on coffee or get better coffee. I highly recommend Coffee Brand Coffee, and also not a sponsor, but could be, and also Java Love. Talked about it before, but get better coffee. You should not be suffering through bad coffee, for sure. So today, we are going to stall for time until the coffee is done being brewed. I'm going to go over and get it, and then we are going to talk about abusive relationships. I know, super fun, not heavy topic at all on a Tuesday evening, but I find it to be both relevant and extremely important. Relevant because I am working with someone through the end of their abusive relationship, and hopefully they never get into one of those again. And important just because I think it's important for everybody to see the warning signs, which we'll talk about, the different types of abuse, which we will go through, how men can be abused by women, and neither party can recognize or realize that or express it. Some examples of what abuse looks like. And then I will go on probably a rant on how to get out of it. I will definitely take your chats, any wisdom. If you've been in one, you got out of it, anything related to that you want to talk about, I'm here for it. We're going to talk about it. So I hear the coffee. It sounds like it's just about done. I'm switching my phone off of making noise, and I'm going to go get some coffee. Let's do the BRB LOL. How's that? Okay. I'm going to get some coffee now. It does indeed look just about done. Putting a little extra something in there. There's still some dripping, is what's happening. I don't even know, is that picking up at all? this show on the road. Come on. I'm making coffee over here. All right. The coffee is done. It is super hot though, so. But I am back with this wonderful, delicious beverage. But we're going to wait a minute. So as people come in, I'm going to be just kind of going over what we're talking about again. We're talking about abusive relationships, how to identify them and how to stop them, essentially. Hallmarks of abusive relationships, types of abusive relationships, how men and women can be abused or abusers, and sometimes not even realize it. So we're going to talk about all those things, and if you are open to it, you can certainly share information about relationships that have similar elements to these, because not all of these elements make it so that you're in an abusive relationship. And I'll go through those particulars, because some of these things, it depends on the frequency, intensity, and duration. So we're going to talk about that, but feel free to share some elements if you feel that, like, oh yeah, I was in one that, they did this or they did that. And I'm hopefully able to help tackle some of your questions on how to make sure that your relationship is less on the borderline between abusive and not, hopefully. So we'll see. If you feel like sharing, if you don't, obviously feel free to DM me. You can send me a message. If you look on here, you can see I'm on my website, holisticlifeconsultants.com. You can submit. I am ready, and you can just send me a message there. I usually get that via email pretty soon after you send it. On Instagram, at The Life Coach Insta. You can DM me there. Slide on into the DMs. And The Life Coach on YouTube. There's no DM there, but you can also send me a private message on Twitch, and I will look for that as well. So lots of avenues. If you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel like you can share your story with everyone, at least you can get, if you want to get that information out, I can keep you anonymous, and I can discuss that information with everybody else, so they benefit from maybe your experience and your wisdom and your success. So it's been a minute. Hopefully the coffee is drinkably hot and not going to burn the lips off my face hot, although I think it is the latter. But cheers to hopefully your success in getting out of abusive relationships, and more so, hopefully you've never been in one. May you never know what that's like. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. Not for store-bought, not for decaf. It's worth going in for a double sip. Oh. I was asked, because I mentioned that I had the best buffalo chicken that I've had in 6 months. First thing I was asked is where, and I don't remember. I just ordered it on Grubhub. And the second one is, you're drinking coffee right after buffalo chicken? Yeah, there's two things in this world that I could probably have no matter what I did before. One of them's buffalo chicken. The other one's probably coffee. So they kind of go hand in hand. I don't think I've ever drank coffee while eating buffalo chicken, but I could see it happening if it wasn't hot coffee, maybe an iced coffee. Don't judge me. Over here sipping my coffee, minding my own business, broadcasting it to the world. Just want my privacy. Yeah, so how is everybody doing today? It's a Tuesday afternoon or evening. Good Lord. I hope your week started off well. Talked to a couple different people today who have pretty much told me that their Tuesdays felt like a Monday. I hope that your Tuesday has evolved from being a Monday to an actual Tuesday. Iced coffee is basically melted ice cream. Well, if you put cream and sugar in your coffee, I would agree with that, but that is not how I drink my coffee. Oh, mug of the day, by the way. Here we go. It is the Mario Brothers Dark World on the outside. I can't show you the inside, even though it's really cool, because it's the like 4th level. You can see kind of the top. Bowser's in there. It's a great mug. I have one at the house. I have one here. So, because my sister got me one, I think, and my mom got me one. I don't know. 2 people got them for me at the same time. like 4 years ago or something, 3, 4 years ago. And I was like, yep, I'll take both of those because I love this mug. So that's how I ended up with the mug that you see before you today. But yeah, iced coffee is, I don't know how I feel about that because I was just saying I don't put anything in my coffee. Even iced coffee, if I put anything in it, it's less ice and 2 extra or 4 extra shots of espresso. I was at a coffee bar a few weeks ago and I ordered a cold brew with 4 extra shots of espresso at 8, 9 o'clock at night. And the person that gave it out, like that handed it to me, so it was a different person than took the order. He comes out and he goes, I just wanted to see what the person looks like that orders a cold brew with 4 shots of espresso at night. I was like, this is what that person looks like. So behold, apparently it is a sight to see somebody who's drinking coffee with espresso shots at, nighttime. I don't think it's a big deal. I could basically fall asleep right after drinking coffee. I mean, decaf or not, it really doesn't matter. I just like the flavor. But yeah, I'll pass out right after drinking coffee. No problem. Caffeinated. But I also don't put anything in it. So, but anyway, yes, I don't necessarily disagree with your comment, chickmate. But again, please don't taint your coffee with nonsense and tell me that you like coffee. But how was everybody else's Tuesday? How was your Monday? How was the weekend? I hope that it did not involve abuse. I hope you're not here because you were like, oh, it's been that kind of week. I better go onto a stream and find out more. But obviously, I'm here for you if you've experienced abuse in your relationship currently or in the past and you don't want to get into that again. This is hopefully more of an informative stream today. It's going to be a little bit less goofy. I'll probably throw in the more you know. I'll put in hopefully some fun facts. And I'll try to make this fun, but I just think it's so, there's a couple things that I'm going to talk about today and rant about that people do not talk about. And especially as it relates to like the Title IX system or men being victims of abuse, even though the statistics on it are pretty striking that men are abused more often. And it's just tough. It's tough all the way around. And it's also tough because people go online and I'll show you, like they'll find the exact websites that I found and then they'll gaslight their partner using that information, which is an aspect of abuse, just FYI. If somebody's telling you that they read something on the internet and that's why you're the bad guy, even though you're sure you just were asking a question about what your partner was doing, they're probably gaslighting you. So we're going to talk about gaslighting. That's actually a really difficult one. It's probably the most common. I think gaslighting and victim blaming, which is kind of the same thing, are the most common aspects of that. But you tell me what your favorite flavor of abuse is in relationships you've had. You can put it in the chat, or of course you can DM me and you don't have to put that out publicly. All right, I've been stalling and milking that coffee for too long. Let's get into it. 11 warning signs of emotional abuse. Wait, are there double? Okay, double sound. Yeah. I have like triple sound. Now do I? Okay, I have single sound there. Whoa, that was weird. The browser sound was coming through as the microphone. I had 3 different line in, but we're all better now. So let's talk about warning signs of emotional abuse. What I typed into a Google search, just a quick search, was what is a, what did I say? What is in an abusive relationship? So this comes to us from act.liveyourdream.org. They have like a pledge to stop abuse. They have all kinds of stuff like learn the signs so you can speak up against abuse. That's such a great first line. Whoever made this website, by the way, is fantastic. And there's even like a pop-up that comes up that's just like, hey, if you're here because you think you might be getting abused and you need help, send us a thing like right now. We'll contact somebody that you can get help from. So fantastic, very, very intuitive, very good website. I do recommend this, actually. I think this is well done. And then there's this pledge to end violence against women. I don't know how helpful that is, but you know, we used to do these mental health contracts like way back in the day when I was in the crisis world, and we're talking 2005, 2006, maybe 2007. And we would have these kids, like teenagers and adults, sign a mental health contract where they like promise not to kill themselves. And I was like, what if they lie? Like, what are we doing right now? So anyway, that practice is not really it's frowned upon now. I don't think people do that anymore. Even while I was there, I think that we evolved out of that. But that was just a really funny. It was a funny part of like the beginning of my career. You know, I was like 21 years old, and I'm just like, I don't think this is gonna work the way you think it is. Man, that sounded Canadian. Anyway, the signs of an emotionally abusive relationship. And I picked emotionally intentionally because it's usually the first step of any abusive relationship. There are times where they skip the line or they do financial abuse or whatever. There's times where different types of abuse are right away or physical abuse is right away, and it tends to be culturally specific, contextually specific. But typically the abuse, what I'd call train, the train towards ultimate abuse, starts with backhanded compliments and things like that, and it turns into more psychological and emotional abuse, and then it turns into the physical abuse if it gets there. A lot of abusive relationships never get to physical abuse, and but the severity of those tends to increase when it's a male abusing a female or a male abusing a male, although male and male together relationships don't tend to be as physically abusive as male to female relationships. And female relationships to males, there is an element of physical abuse, but it only escalates to a certain point, although it can escalate to lethal violence. So that's not that can't happen. But I wanted to start with emotionally abusive relationships because it's probably the vast majority of relationships. And it's the thing that people don't look at, don't realize, don't think about. And it's really easy to sink into patterns of emotional abuse. So buckle up, kids. We're going to go on the magic school bus of abuse. I don't know that Miss Frizzle will be cool with that, but we're going to do it anyway. Emotional abuse is one way that unhealthy relationships manifest. Emotional abuse is broadly defined as when the actions and attitudes of one person cause another individual to experience negative emotions. And remember, these are examples. It doesn't mean if it's not that it can't be an emotionally abusive situation. But examples are it causes anxiety, depression, or low self-esteem. If you've known me for a while, you know how I feel about self-esteem. So we're just going to skip over that. We've put together some signs that indicate that you are in an emotionally abusive relationship plus other signs of abuse. And then they have the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is, I'm going to put in the chat in Twitch right now, just in case you or somebody you know is suffering from domestic violence. That's the hotline. And let's keep going. All right, so 11 warning signs of emotional abuse. Number one, your partner by the way, this is not a hierarchy. This is not like the order of severity. This is just a list. So don't take this as like number one, number two, and then like a top 10. It's not a top 10. It is actually, they're all equally bad. Your partner attacks your self-worth and criticizes you. Being demeaned by your partner is a clear sign of emotional abuse. If they're constantly putting you down, calling you names, criticizing your behavior, and suggesting you are worthless, this is a big red flag. Yeah, suggesting or straight up telling somebody that they're worthless is a pretty big sign. Particularly if it happens in front of other people. So yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. With the intention of humiliating you. Everyone deserves a partner who respects them. Expects them. I don't know what that means, but flaws and all. A relationship where insults and criticism are the norm is toxic. Emotional abuse isn't only in romantic relationships. Wow, that is a fantastic point. Why not? Let's just get derailed right now. Let's talk about how this exact point. I think that it is a lot more acceptable to talk about emotional abuse in relationships that are romantic. I think that it's easier to identify. I think that it's kind of more well known. It's that pop psychology, like, ooh, like don't let somebody abuse you in a romantic relationship. But there are so many types of relationships where abuse is the norm. There are abusive relationships at work. If you've known me for a long time, we haven't done this in the new streams, but we'll get there. where I talk about how getting everything from preparing to get a job to getting a job to keeping a job to leaving a job has parallels with a romantic relationship that are too close for comfort. And I can go through step by step on that and show that to you. But your work relationship certainly can be abusive. I heard Jeremy from the Quartering was talking about how YouTube's relationship with its creators is abusive and toxic. And I tend to agree with that for the most part, especially the ones that have been there for a long time. Not necessarily nobodies like my channel, like they don't really even know me enough to abuse me. It's more neglectful, I would say, than abusive. Any relationship where you're living with somebody, a roommate, bunkmate, campmate, doesn't have to be forever either, by the way. You could be with somebody for a month. That relationship could be toxic and abusive. Camp, go like sleepaway camp, happens all the time. I get calls from people that come, their kid comes back and they had a very abusive bunkmate. They were just above them or below them, or there was like 5 in their little cabin, and like the other, they were just group bullying. That's all very toxic. That's all very abusive. You can be in an abusive relationship that there's a hierarchy. So whether it's somebody that is your mentor, or it's somebody that is your professor, or it's somebody that is like in a fraternity and they're kind of like your bigger person and you're the little, or you're whatever, you're the little brother, those can all be abusive relationships. So any relationship, anything, like a friend from school, like your uncle could be abusing you, but not in the way that we typically talk about the uncle abusing them. They could be as an adult demeaning you, and every time they see you, they could be nasty. Your relationship with your parents can be abusive when you're a child, but also as an adult, and vice versa. I know plenty of relationships where it's the reverse, where children are being abusive towards their parents. I had a client, man, it must have been right before COVID or right after. I can't totally remember because those 3 years kind of blend together, 2.5 years. This woman's coming to me asking if I can help her son. Well, her son was a monster. I mean, he was physically threatening his sister, was verbally abusing everybody in the house, including the mother, was breaking things, stealing things, and then demeaning the mother and making her feel like crap and doing all these things that were just all the hallmark signs of abuse that I had to pull the mother aside and say, listen, you need the help. Your son is the problem, the progenitor of the abuse. You are in an abusive relationship with your son. You need help to stand up for yourself. There's resources for you. You're in danger of domestic violence from him. And she didn't want to hear it. She's like, no, he's, he loves me and blah, blah, blah. And we'll talk about this as we go on too today. You can't always win them all. You're not going to convince everybody who's very clearly in an abusive situation that they are. Because denial is a very powerful anesthetic for the pain that comes from an abusive relationship. But to go back to the original digression and derailment, yes, I think Miss Nick is right that emotional abuse is not the only. It's not only in romantic relationships, and I think I went over most of them. Sibling relationships can be abusive. Coworkers, teammates, military personnel, your partner. And if you're in emergency services, if you're in an ambulance group, for example, if you're an EMT, either the driver or the person who's in the passenger seat can be an abusive partner. Anything that you can think of where there's a relationship, there could be an abusive relationship. So make no mistake, all this stuff, most of this stuff, I don't think the sexual abuse, well, I guess that does too. It depends on how that all works out. But let's keep going. So we got through part 1 with me only digressing twice. Very good. Number 2, your partner controls your appearance. This one's tricky, and we'll talk about this with like women abusing men. Oftentimes, emotional abuse takes place when a woman's partner wants to control how she looks. Examples include forcing or coercing a partner to lose weight, remove body hair, dress a certain way. In this situation, the woman is led to feel that she is undesirable unless she changes her appearance to suit the male partner's preference. This is exactly the same for abusive women toward men. Oh, I'm going to dress you up. You don't know how to dress yourself. Let me dress you. Let me go with you to buy your clothes. You don't really have good taste. You don't have good style. Those things, whether intentional or unintentional, are designed to cause the man to feel low self-esteem. I don't care how well intentioned the girl thinks she is or pretends to be or whatever, if she really just genuinely is clueless that she does that, that's a form of emotional abuse. You are tearing somebody down and demeaning their appearance and saying, basically, you are not attractive unless I dress you up. And this is so much more common for women to do with men than for men to do with women. That's why it sticks out oftentimes when a man is telling a woman to lose weight or to like dress differently. You can ask. You can ask for something you like. You can ask for something you want to see. You can say, let's both get healthier. But yeah, you cross the line when you're telling somebody like, hey, you could lose a few pounds. Really? Thanks. Like, because either I already know that, and I don't need you to help me with that, or I didn't think so. And what you're telling me is you find me unattractive unless I do this thing. That type of personal bodily control, and that's why it's such a dangerous, slippery slope with letting women choose your wardrobe, men. It's an immediate slippery slope. It's a very steep slope where they literally have control over your body. It's not even yours anymore. That's a type of alienation that I think is pretty severe. It's one of the most severe, I think. Number 3, your partner shares sensitive information about you. Another sign of emotional abuse is a partner who shares sensitive information about you with others. For example, a person might be sensitive about the fact that they're overweight and they plan to start seeing a nutritionist. The person asks their partner not to tell anyone about it. If their partner shares the information anyway, emotional abuse is in effect. Caveats. I'm just going to throw that right out there. If they have a confidant and that person isn't really friends with you, or it's a sister, or it's a mother, or it's just a confidant, and it's not designed to humiliate you, it could just be that your partner is venting frustrations or making observations, or maybe they're happy that you're going to see a nutritionist, so they're excited and they tell their confidant. That's very different than there's another couple, you're both friends with them, they're like work partners or something. So like there's some social credit, there's some social value there. And they're saying that knowing full well, or not caring, honestly, if that humiliates you. The key here is humiliation. Just like in the first one, where you're getting your self-worth attacked in front of people, it's humiliation by design. It's to make you feel lesser than other people in front of other people. It's degrading you so that you have less self-worth. There's a lot of reasons for that, and a lot of it has to do ultimately with total control and dominance, and it's much easier to dominate somebody who feels already like they're worth very little. So that's a surefire one, like a boom. If somebody makes you feel humiliated and you've spoken to them about it and they didn't think it was a mistake, that's a hardcore abuser right there. Number 4, your partner shuts conversations down. This is a classic sign of emotional abuse. Abusers are not interested in mutual understanding. They simply want to coerce and control their partners into submission. One way this takes place is when the abuser prevents their partner from speaking. They may cut you off mid-sentence, walk away from the conversation, or talk over you until you give up and the abuser feels that they have, quote, won the argument. This is a form of emotional abuse that makes the victim feel that their voice has no value. Okay, so this is one of those landmines. This one's because it's accurate, it's true, that people who are intentionally trying to shut you down or ignore what you're saying and don't want to hear how you feel and don't care to hear your side, and they just want to win the fight and they look everything as a fight, for sure that's emotional abuse. But there are certainly people who have things like anger management, or they're seeing a therapist and they're getting cognitive behavioral therapy. They're looking for advanced techniques, but they have to start with less advanced techniques. And maybe one of those things is to walk away from the conversation, cool down, collect your thoughts, come back and say something meaningful instead of abrasive and abusive. So it could be a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you're talking to somebody and you're like, yeah, like, so I'm going to walk away right now because I'm so infuriated or I'm so hot. I need to go somewhere and cool off and then I'll come back. And then you're told, well, you're just walking away from me. You don't want to hear what I have to say. That person is the abuser. That's the crazy part. When somebody's making a good faith effort to not be as aggressive, to not explode emotionally, and they're being called out for it and basically told they're wrong anyway for trying to do something different, that other person's being emotionally abusive. That's coercive. Because what you're basically saying is, I expect you to have total emotional regulation with me, not be triggered by any of my responses to you through some sort of trauma that you may have had, not speak out angrily, but I don't want you to go and decompress or anything. I don't want you to figure out how to handle your emotions better. And I expect perfection in this conversation. And go. So this is a landmine. This is one of those where abusers read lists like this and then use that as a way to be abusive. To say, well, you're walking away and I don't feel like my voice is heard. And they'll use language like that, ironically, to shut down the other side. So, for example, one person is telling the other one, I just really don't like the way it makes me feel when you tell me that I am a piece of crap for not doing the dishes when you just got home from work. I planned on doing it. I knew I was going to do it. I know I'm the one that makes the most dishes, so I don't care. But I just feel micromanaged and I feel little and I feel stupid and like a child when you tell me that and you get mad at me. And then the other person responds by saying, I tried to tell you that I don't want to come home to dirty dishes, and you're telling me my voice has no value. You're shutting me down. That's what you're trying to do. You're abusing me. That, my friends, is some good-ass gaslighting. That's some real solid gaslighting. Like, you know just enough about psychology to be dangerous. So you shut it down. That's the irony of this one, and be very aware, be careful that you're not silencing yourself because you've been bullied into not saying what you feel for fear that you're going to be told that you're being emotionally abusive for shutting the conversation down. Does that make sense? I just want to be really clear. Like, you can be getting abused and feel like you can improve yourself, and you could also be the abuser and not realize it. So there's a lot of really weird minutia in abuse. All right. Well, hey, let's go right to gaslighting. Gaslighting is a manipulation tactic that abusive partners will often use. Gaslighting refers to when an abuser tries to control a victim by twisting their sense of reality or making them doubt what they experienced. Examples of gaslighting include telling a victim, that never happened, or that's not what I said, which can cause the victim to question their memory and rely more on the reality that their abuser creates. Another common form of gaslighting is being told, you're crazy, or you're too sensitive, too inadequate, to invalidate your feelings and discredit you. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Gaslighting is any technique that manipulates reality to make you the bad guy for bringing up a legitimate concern. That's what gaslighting is. This is not a great definition of gaslighting. So boo on you, live your dream. You get an F on gaslighting. Yeah, maybe a D+, click. But it does involve that. It does involve twisting things around, calling somebody crazy for having an issue, calling somebody too sensitive because you've clearly hurt their feelings and they're trying to tell you that. Be aware if you find yourself saying things like that, because we all can be the monster. Nobody is immune to that. I know I've done some of these things. I know that all of them have been done to me. We all can be the monster that we try to hate. So be aware that your behaviors can be abusive, even if you're not an abusive person. Much the same as that you can hit somebody with your car and you're not a homicidal maniac. I almost got hit by a car yesterday. I'm pretty sure that the woman was not going postal and trying to kill everybody because she apologized to me after she almost hit me, but she did almost kill me. I was dead center in between her headlights and she was gassing it. I was gonna die. So it can happen, and she still doesn't have to be a murderous woman, but she still definitely could have killed me. So be aware of that. You can do things that are abusive, and it doesn't mean that you're an abuser. But gaslighting is anything that deflects or warps the conversation to make it advantageous for the abuser. Abusers are always looking to win. They're always looking to have the leg up. They're always looking to be in the position of leverage or advantage or power. They don't have conversations to get happier. And in fact, almost all abusers are miserable. They usually hate everybody. They're always victims. And this plays into that. If I am always a victim, no matter what I say, no matter what you do, or no matter what I do to you, and no matter what you say about it, I'm the victim. And I'm going to prove to you that you victimized me every single time. And guess what? If you're articulate enough and you're fast-witted enough and your partner's not really interested in getting into that, you could probably make that happen almost every single conversation. And that's exactly what abusive partners want to do. Be aware there's a difference between two people getting heated and fighting and having an argument once in a while, and one person constantly being the victim and explaining to you why you're the bad guy. Because that's a hallmark of abuse. If you feel like you're always the bad guy, but they won't leave you, chances are they're the abuser. They're, in fact, the bad guy or girl. All right, number 6, your partner crosses boundaries. Creating boundaries is a way for couples to maintain strong relations while simultaneously having a sense of self and independence. Super duper healthy. Love that sentence. I'm going to say it again because it's super healthy. Ready? Creating boundaries is a way for couples to maintain strong relations while simultaneously having a sense of self and independence. Oh, love that. People come into the table with different days, different activities, things to share, new knowledge, fun little jokes or music or memes or whatever. Oh, self and independence. Don't like that codependent stuff. For example, you and your partner might have a joint account while also maintaining independent accounts. Also, cha-ching, good idea. If a man charges a purchase to his partner's account without her permission, he's crossed a boundary, especially if they didn't talk about it ahead of time. If boundary breaking happens repeatedly, this jeopardizes the victim's sense of safety and independence. You're basically getting rickrolled. I mean, you could look at this one like your partner crossing boundaries, like you're getting rickrolled all the time. So they're rolling all over you with your space. This can happen with space in your house. They feel like they can do whatever they want to all the space in the house. It's all theirs. It's not yours. You're just living there. You've got this tiny little closet space and they're just putting all their stuff in there. You've got one little shelf in the living room and they're putting all their stuff on it. You have a picture that you really like and that constantly keeps getting replaced with another one. So your physical space can be a boundary that gets crossed. Your friendships, they start dominating your personal friendships. They're inappropriately messaging and trying to buddy up with your best friends, trying to have their own time of watching a movie or hanging out privately with people that you've known your whole life and you've only introduced them to you recently. That's a form of boundary crossing. It violates your sense of independence, and it's extremely difficult because these are the sorts of things, like especially with violating friends and boundaries there, where it can be masked as, well, I'm trying to be the good girlfriend. I'm trying to be friends with all your friends. I'm trying to be the good guy and make all your girlfriends like me. Well, did you need to go on a date with them? I mean, did you have to go out for a burger alone with them and not tell me until I found out like 2 weeks later? That's weird, isn't it? That's a type of abuse. What they're trying to do is they're trying to dominate all of your space, whether that's your bank account, your house, your friends, your music collection, your movie collection, your taste, your clothing, your wardrobe, your diet, what's in your kitchen. Anything where you start to see less and less of you and more of them, that's a form of dominance that is boundary crossing, and it's emotional abuse. I wanted to explain that further because I really don't think that this does that justice, and hopefully it puts something in your head now that you're thinking about it and you're like, no shit. I didn't really think of it that way, but I don't see anything of mine there anymore. Or I haven't used my own cologne or perfume in forever. They picked it out for me and didn't even tell me. More than half of my clothes are not mine anymore. Or man, like I don't even see my DVD collection anymore because we had to get rid of them to save space. But now there's all these knickknacks everywhere. Chances are, my friend, you're in a controlling relationship, and that is an abusive relationship. Because I'm going to say this a lot of times today. Remember that abuse is about control, not violence, not actual harm, although those are side effects. Abuse is about control, dominance. Control, dominance, power. That's what abuse is about. Number 7, your partner monitors your activities or conversations. If your partner constantly checks your text messages, call history, emails, or browser history, this controlling behavior is a form of emotional abuse. It forces you into a constant state of fear of being watched or scrutinized and makes it difficult to reach out to others when you need help. I mean, what's funny about this, and this kind of relates to a private matter with one of my clients, this partner had my client's phone password in her head. She knew it, and she could get into it anytime. And she did frequently. And she deleted messages that made her look bad. And she would find things from years before they were together and then start yelling at him about it and like constantly berate him and then ignore him and call him names and do all kinds of things and victimize herself, basically. Tell him why she was constantly the victim. But she was always violating his private space. This is two things. This is crossing boundaries and monitoring his activities and conversations. Anytime you have someone that you're in a relationship with that says, give me your phone, nope. Might as well break it off. Because the point is not that you're doing anything right or wrong. The point is privacy and trust and your boundaries and their boundaries. I mean, are they offering you their phone first and saying, honey, I don't think that we have anything to hide from each other. Here's my phone. Look at it. Here's the password. I don't care if you have it. Look at it. It doesn't bother me at all. Here's my PIN. Here, whatever. I'm going to put your face in there so you can unlock it if you want. Because, whatever. You might want to talk to somebody or you get a phone call. I'm in the shower, whatever. I just want you to be able to open text messages or whatever. That's one thing. Saying, I don't trust you. I want to look at your phone right now. And then they start digging through all your messages to find something you did wrong. That's emotional abuse. Because as was said in communist USSR, find me the man and I'll find you the crime. If you investigate somebody long enough, you're going to find something that you find distasteful or wrong or bad that they did. It doesn't matter. Investigate somebody long enough, you're going to find a crime. So it's violating and it takes away from somebody's self-worth and it makes it very difficult for them to feel safe even having a conversation with friends and family. Number 8, your partner isolates you from family and friends. So this is one of the more obvious ones that I think that pop culture, pop psychology has done a pretty damn good job with getting people to understand. Like, isolation is a core concept of abuse in a relationship. They alienate you from your friends, then they alienate you from your closer friends, they alienate you from your extended family, alienate you from your immediate family, alienate you from your own dog or cat. And now you are completely isolated. And again, the point of that is power, control, dominance. Isolation is so important for an abuser that it's one of the very obvious things, a litmus test, if you will. So let's get into it. I'll read this and then I'll talk to you about how to use a litmus test to see if your partner's abusive. Let's go. Emotionally abusive partners may try to isolate the victim from their friends and family. The abuser does not want the victim to have a social network because others may question his or her controlling actions and attitudes. That's one of the biggest parts of this. Accountability to your support system. If you are accountable to their family and their friends, but they're not accountable to your family and your friends, you, my friend, are probably in an emotionally abusive relationship. I say probably because it always depends. Not that I'm a lawyer, but that is a good response. In some cases, an emotionally abusive spouse or partner will forbid a man or woman to maintain a friendship after the friend calls out their inappropriate behavior. Bingo. That's a great litmus test. Isolating their victim from others is also a way for an abuser to secure their victim's state of dependence on them, making it harder to leave. At the end of the abusive relationship that my client was in, he stated for many months, I have nothing left. There's no one else. They're all I have. It is a very lonely place to be the victim of abuse, which is why there's so many hotlines. It's why there's so many warm lines. It's why there's so many resources that are out there to try to help people, because what you need oftentimes after being isolated for so long is a helping hand and a warm smile, somebody who tells you you matter, you're valuable, and I care about you. That sometimes is the trigger to get them to have the strength to say, well, if I got this again, this feels nice. I have just enough energy now to get rid of this bozo. It does work. It really does work. And if you're feeling that, if you're in that situation, I encourage you to reach out to the hotline that I posted in the chat, or you can go up here in this website, which is act.liveyourdream.org, and a pop-up comes up, and there's the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And there's other things you can do. We'll talk about those things. Oh, this one's one of the more blatantly obvious ones. Oh, let me talk about other litmus tests for like isolating you from your friends and family. Try this. If you're not sure, try this. Make a list of all the friends that you had and all the people you talked to when you started your relationship with your significant other. If you can remember, hopefully it's not that long ago. And look at all of those people on that list and see what percentage of them you're still talking to or friends with or see or anything. Look at your family. Now look at their friend list. See if you can list off their current friends versus the friends that they had, and look at their family. Oftentimes, abusers don't have a lot of family. You'll see that a lot where like they don't really have contact with their family. They don't really have any friends. That's usually a really great abuser because they don't really have anybody to answer to in their own lives either. People who don't like to have people to answer for and answer to usually got rid of their own a long time ago. Hey, what's going on, Jay Holloway? How you doing, sir? We're talking about abusive relationships. Hopefully you don't know what I'm talking about, but we're going through right now isolation. So we're doing this little litmus test. And then ask your significant other or your friend or your partner, whoever it is that you may believe that you're in an abusive relationship with, if they mind that you're going to invite that person over for lunch or dinner while they're there. Like, we're not saying privately, while they're there. Or that you've just mentioned that you've been talking to them again, and look at their response. If you get a positive response that seems something like, wow, that's good, you haven't really talked to them in a while, chill. They're not trying to isolate you. It sounds like they also just fell into a habit of not talking to as many people anymore. We do it. You know, we all had 20 million friends when we were in elementary school. We were all friends. That's what, you know, even like I hear kindergarten and first grade teachers, all right, friends, we're all going to sit on the rug. And it's like, oh, I'm not friends with her. Kelly's a real bitch. But, you know, then you get up into the middle school and you have less friends. And then you get into high school and you have like a small cadre of friends. And by the time you're in your like 20s and 30s, you've got like maybe 2 or 3 friends. If you're lucky, that's a great number. 2 or 3 friends. Awesome. So we do that anyway. We shed people, but like family, we typically don't shed much. Extended family, maybe, sometimes siblings, but usually not like both of your parents. So if your partner gets a negative response, says things like, why would you talk to them? Why are you talking to them? What did they say? What are you doing? Like, well, I don't want them over here. Ooh, the heat just went up a little bit. You should probably be a little concerned. It sounds like you got a doozy on your hands. That's when you should probably send me a message or do the things that we talked about with the hotline. Shout it out on Facebook. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So number 9, though, I do want to talk about number 9 because it's very obvious, but I've seen people do this. You have to ask your partner for permission to leave the house. This is a clear sign of emotional abuse. They even say it. They're like, yeah, this is clear. With this type of controlling behavior, the abuser wants to ensure that they always know where the other person is. Additionally, this type of behavior is a psychological trick that makes the victim experience self-doubt about his or her ability to be independent, complete important tasks, set and accomplish goals, etc. This makes you doubt yourself about even going out anywhere when you have to ask for permission. I don't know yet, man. I had some crazy stuff. Actually, some of the stuff that we're talking about today is the stuff that I've been working with a client about for the last week plus intensively after working about a year. But yeah, not yet. I'll work on something, but it's just this stuff's still not over, and it's a couple different things kind of blew up. So it's been a week. It's been a couple weeks actually. But permission to leave the house is a big one. The other one is, when are you coming home? This is not on this list, I don't think, but I think this fits under permission to leave the house. If you're constantly being questioned, when are you going to be home? Where are you? What are you doing? It's okay if somebody asks you once in a while, like, hey, what are you doing? Where are you? Maybe I'll come meet you. Or like, hey, you're over here. Maybe I'll bring you some lunch. Or like, hey, you're hanging out with so and so. Maybe I'll stop by if you don't mind. I can see you. Or I just miss you. I want to see you. That's okay. It seems innocent enough. But if every day you're getting a message saying, where are you, with no context and no qualifiers, that's emotional abuse, because there's a assumed control in that question. I deserve to know your whereabouts. Your body actually belongs to me, and you're putting it on rent or on lease for now so that you can go do what you want to do, but you better report back here at a specific time or else. There's always an implied or else. That's control. That's manipulation. It's coercion. It is abusive. Work on the sidelines. Trying to tweak the stream, advertise. Are you back streaming? Made a logo with a bigger email contact and phone number. That's cool. Yeah, I saw your avatar looks pretty good right now. I like that. I like that one. It was pretty cool. But yeah, so this leaving the house thing, it also has to do with needing to know where you are at all times, who you're with, not even at all times, just like enough to make you question yourself and feel that stress. This is another good litmus test in something like this, where you're feeling like if you didn't say anything about where you're going, or if you didn't check in, or if you didn't get that question yet of where are you, know it's coming, and you feel that anxiety, that's a good litmus test that you're in an abusive relationship. Because you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling their control, and you don't want to face the consequences if you don't answer that question, check in with that person, ask them if you can leave, let them know where you're going and who you're with. You're home all the time? I do appreciate that, and I'm sure I'm going to need mods. The problem is I'm going to need mods in like multiple chats, because I'm on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch right now. I will probably be on LinkedIn in the next week or two, and then I'm going to see if I'm going to do Rumble. We'll see. I like Rumble. I like what they're doing here, and I don't mind contributing. It just, I don't know. It's got to be worth it, and I have to have the right equipment. There's some other stuff that's in the wings that I have to take care of before I feel like I have enough to do that. But I appreciate that. It's just, you'd have to be in 3 different chat rooms at once. All right, number 10, your partner asks you to compromise your morals. You have to have them first, just so you know. You have to have morals in order for them to be compromised. It's important to know your morals. And that's a whole other thing that I talk about behind the scenes in different streams behind the paywall. Like if you're a member, we talk about that kind of stuff. But for now, let's just assume you have morals and principles. Good. Okay. Your partner, like most people, you probably have a sense of right and wrong that helps you maintain a sense of ethical selfhood. By the way, I have no idea what that means. Ethical selfhood. I don't think that's a clinical term. I think they made that up. But I kind of like it. It kind of encapsulates that everybody has a moral self, and it does matter that you're grounded to some sort of standards or ethics. The Greeks would be proud. Anyway, yeah, in many cases, an emotionally abusive partner will compromise this healthy way of living by asking you to do or say things that violate your moral code. One common example is for a person to pressure another person for sex, despite the fact that they have already stated that they're not ready for this level of physical intimacy. This is a great red flag for the beginning of a relationship, but it's always a good red flag. If you're not feeling it and they're pushing for it, it's, if you really like them and it's been a while, it's worth the conversation. After that, it's worth getting out of there. But again, don't know your individual situation or circumstance. Feel free to come talk to me about it. But chances are, especially if you're not feeling good, you're not feeling safe, you're not feeling in the mood, and the person's pushy about it, that's not going to go well. But it's not only sexual. So you could be asked to, for instance, get rid of this friend. Well, why? Well, I don't like them. Well, why? Well, because they do something I don't like they smoke pot, and I don't like people who smoke pot. Okay, but I don't. So I know they do, but who cares? Well, I don't like you being friends with anybody who does that. They're asking you to compromise your morals because they're telling you to end a long-term relationship with somebody you care about. Like, don't talk to your parents anymore. Don't go take care of your grandparents. I need you here. Like, these are all things that compromise what you know to be right. And if you find yourself feeling like you're like, I mean, that just doesn't feel right. What they just asked me to do makes me feel a lot of pressure and tension because I don't want to say no because I don't like the consequence. I don't want to seem like a bad partner, but this feels wrong to me. It probably is wrong, and this is a sign of an abusive relationship. And then number 11, this one is all too common. Your partner demeans your dreams. Emotionally abusive individuals are typically frightened at the idea of a partner realizing their dreams. By the way, almost every partner is scared of their partner becoming better off than they were when they met. That is true of everybody. I talk about it with relationship advice all the time. Try to meet people when you're where you want to be because they will typically try to hold you back to where you are because it's scary when somebody gets further along, upgrades themselves, does better, gets a different degree, gets a better job, makes more money, blah, blah, blah. Their business takes off because it means they could always leave you and get with somebody, quote unquote, better. So it's frightening for anyone. But what makes this particularly an abusive situation is that the abuser wants the victim to depend on them for a sense of self-worth and fulfillment, and I would say even for financial gain. For this reason, it is common for abusers to make fun of the victim's dream. The goal of this behavior is to discourage the victim from acting independently, developing self-confidence, or gaining the resources necessary to leave if the abuse becomes unbearable, or dare I say, undesirable. An example of demeaning the victim's dream would be learning that the partner wants to go to college and stating, that's stupid. You don't need a degree to take care of the kids and clean the house. I mean, that is like such a stereotypical one. Oh my God. Like, what is this, 1967? I don't think that one happens as much, although I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. And I'm sorry, if you're somebody who's heard that, I'm sorry. But it's more like now, like, what do you mean you want to start your own business? Like, what if it fails? We need the money that you make from your job. Like, you can't just be giving up on that. Like, what am I going to do? Like, you can't do that. That's stupid. That's a bad move. I don't understand why you would do that. You should be doing this. Those are all signs that your partner's trying to control you, not help you realize your dreams. Your partner may be actively trying to send you articles or links or helpful advice, try to partner you up with people, have you meet different experts to encourage your success. But if they're trying to dictate your success, chances are you're not going to find it, and they're just trying to dominate you again. Then there's other signs of an abusive relationship. Signs of physical abuse. I mean, these are pretty obvious. Hitting, punching, kicking, shoving. I would say pinching, tickling. A lot of people don't realize that tickling is a form of torture. It's a form of abuse. It's not desirable. People who are ticklish do not like being tickled. When you are holding somebody down and you are tickling them, just because they're laughing does not mean that they're not being abused. It doesn't mean somebody likes it just because they're laughing. It is a physiological response that they cannot control, which is why they're saying, while they're laughing and giggling, stop, please stop. I hate that. I hate being tickled. Please do not think it's okay to tickle people when they ask you not to. It is just as abusive as punching them and kicking them and shoving them. It makes them feel just as out of control, just as unsafe. Just please don't do it. I know it's probably, maybe hot take of the day. Like, tickling is not cute. It's not funny. It's not fun if somebody doesn't like it. There are people who don't mind it, and it's cute and whatever. Kids like to be like tickled a little bit. But don't hold somebody down and tickle them. That is clearly abusive. My brother and sister were both older than me, and I remember still that they used to tickle torture me, and they would call it tickle torture, so it's not like they didn't know it was torture. But it literally got to the point where I had to become immune to being tickled. Like, where I can't be tickled anymore. I'm not ticklish anymore. I had to turn it off. It was the only way that they would leave me alone. It was a way that they saw that they could do something that I couldn't control, and it was pretty obvious that that's what it was, because as soon as I wasn't ticklish anymore, I wasn't fun anymore, so they stopped trying. Tickling almost always triggers a panic attack for me. See, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. And I don't think that we're the only two, by the way. I think that a lot of people, if you think about it, really do not enjoy being tickled, and it's considered acceptable. It's not even on this list. There's signs of sexual abuse on here, forcing you to perform sex acts without your consent, demanding it when you don't want to. We talked about that. Harming you during that activity by choking, holding, or striking you. Again, caveat, if it's consensual, that's very different. Forcing you to watch things that you don't want to watch, insulting you in sexual ways. There is thing I have to do, and somehow make a stream elements command to advertise. I don't have to make a video. Yeah. Just make a note of it. Don't stress yourself out. There's psychological abuse, threatening to hurt you or your children, your pets, or your loved one. That's a big one. You know, blackmailing, I don't know, your sibling and saying, I'm going to ruin their life or get them fired. That's psychological abuse. Damaging your stealing your belongings, threatening to do so, blaming you for the abuse, saying that you deserve what happens or that you caused them to do what they did. You made me do that. Oh, baby, why'd you make me hit you? Classic line of psychological abuse after physical abuse. Nobody makes you get out of control and do something wrong. You did that. You're the beer thief. You. It doesn't have to be. You could be mad. You could be upset. You could be enraged. And somebody could really piss you off. Sure. That's on them. What you do next is on you. Every single time. Every time. Sorry. I've been through that with my birth mom. Psych abuse and physical. Thank God I no longer see her or anything with her. Yeah, I mean, and this is what happens. Like when you can't pick your parents. I just was talking to my very good friends. We have a group chat. And man, one of my best friend's fiancés was abused and tortured to the point where she doesn't even consider that person a parent. And she just can't wait for him to no longer be on this earth. And I can't say I blame her. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that where it really messes with people. Verbally abusing children when they can't get a reaction out of you. Yes, that is psychological abuse. It's emotional abuse for the kids, but it's compounded with the psychological abuse to you as a mother. That's exactly right. That's a classic abuser, psychological abuse. That's exactly that. Blaming you. He's a huge one. And this is one that women will often use in abusive relationships with men. Withholding affection or acknowledgement in order to punish you or get their way. The silent treatment. There's a lot of things that just withholding any of the arrangements of the relationship because you're quote unquote being punished. It used to be called being put in the doghouse. That, you know, women would put their husbands, you know, on the couch or in a shed if they did something that they quote unquote didn't like, not hashing it out, not really handling it as adults, not trying to figure out how to do better later, just punishing them. You are an adult and they're an adult. You don't get to punish another adult. That's not how this works. That changes the dynamic of the relationship to become abusive. That is abuse because one side can control the other. It doesn't work that way. I don't care how mad you are. Get over it. Talk about it. Figure it out. You go somewhere. You go sleep on the couch. You have to figure this out. You're in a relationship with another person. You don't get to withhold affection, withhold the I love you, withhold any of the things that are in that relationship for whatever predetermined time that you decided because that's long enough for them to be punished. You can't ground them. They're not your child. You're not grounding your partner. What are we doing here? So that's a big one. That being said, because again, that's a landmine. If you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. And I mean that with not just like sexual activity, but like, you know, you don't have to be nice. You don't have to feel like all ooey gooey. You don't have to like hold their hand walking down the street after they just got done doing something really asinine that pisses you off. That's not the same thing at all. I had to learn to say I need space, so the silence I needed wasn't a punishment, but more a cool down. Yeah, well, that's perfect example of what you just said there. I need space is very different than you go to the couch. The punishment, it's a punishment when you're telling them what they're going to go do because of what they did. and you're dictating the terms, it's a self-care, and it's a cognitive behavioral technique that you're working on improving yourself. When you're saying, I need to walk away from this conversation, I need space from you right now, I need time to collect my thoughts and figure out what I want to say to you because I don't even really know what it is that I feel. Those are all very healthy, very normal things. And again, somebody who's just dangerous enough and knows enough about psychology can turn that around on you and gaslight you and say, when you're trying to do something that is healthy, like, I need space, I'm going to go to my mother's, I'm going to go somewhere for the night, I need to think about what happened, I want to talk about this, but I can't right now. And they'll turn that around and say, see, you're withholding affection from me because I read this website and this guy on the internet told me that that means that it's emotionally abusive. And I'm laughing, but that's exactly what gaslighting is. So it's a landmine. Do not fall victim to somebody telling you when you're doing something healthy and you're not trying to punish them. Don't get gaslit and bullied into being affectionate or something with that person right after you have been shocked or hurt or injured in some way. Like, when you need time, you need time. Lying to you. Psychological abuse, I disagree with this. I disagree that lying is psychological abuse for a lot of reasons. Number one, most victims of abuse are liars. Every day. Every day. Every day is a manipulation. Every day is a lie. Every day is some way to withhold the monster from showing up. The whole life is a lie. You're not the monster. If you're in a relationship with someone who you need to deceive in order to not be hurt by, you're not the abuser. I do not agree with this at all whatsoever. Abusers tend to be very honest with their victims. They tend not to lie. They don't feel they have to. They feel very confident and comfortable because they know you're not going anywhere. They don't have to lie. They could be honest, like, yeah, of course I slept with somebody else. What are you going to do about it? Somebody who feels afraid lies. Somebody who feels in charge says ugly truths without flinching. Now, is it abusive when someone who is being aggressive and saying awful things as they are walking out, i.e., fuck you and your kids, go kill yourself, etc.? Yeah, that's not really the healthy way to walk away from a conversation. Not so much with the telling you to end yourself. No, the going and getting air is great, but they probably should have done that before they got to the point where they were swearing at you and cursing your kids, and then asking you to delete yourself. Yeah, no, I would say that's still abusive. Still abusive. And again, this is where we get into the gaslighting, because you say you just walked away in a huff and you cursed me out and you cursed my kids and you told me to go end myself. And they come back and say, well, I just needed to go and get space and air. Like, idiot. You could have done that without the extraneous verbiage. The whole point of walking away is that you don't say stuff like that. So maybe try a little harder next time. But then again, we both know if you're in an abusive relationship, you're not going to say that to them. Because what's the point? You're going to get hurt again. You're going to get gaslit. You're going to be emotionally abused. You're going to be psychologically abused. And you just figured out your litmus test of whether or not you're in an abusive relationship. Then there's financial abuse, preventing you from having access to bank accounts with your own money, only permitting you to spend from an allowance. This happens all the time with people who have money and then they marry somebody and then they don't have money and then they give them an allowance. I mean, that's okay if there's a budget you both agree on and you both have an allowance. You both have an allowance. Let me put that again. You both have an allowance. It's not I make the money so I get to spend 90% of it. You get to spend 2 because it's my money. That's financial abuse. You both have an allowance. Fine. And guess what? Sometimes something goes a little over and you're not being berated for it. You might have a conversation where you're like, listen, we can't really afford to keep doing this, but I understand why you did it. Maybe talk to each other before you spend money that isn't being accounted for, and always have that conversation. But having an allowance and not being permitted to spend more than that, that's financial abuse. Monitoring how you spend money and deciding what you can and cannot buy. Yeah, that's not okay. Stealing your money or using your savings or credit cards without your permission. I mean, that's just plain theft, right? That's a criminal activity. It doesn't matter. Refusing to contribute to shared expenses such as rent, food, childcare, etc. There's also reproductive abuse, refusing to use a condom or telling you not to, or messing it up without your knowledge, refusing to let you use the birth control of your choice, sabotaging birth control, forcing you to become pregnant, or forcing you to becoming pregnant intentionally without their knowledge, forcing you to have an abortion, or preventing you from getting one, regardless of your wishes. And I would add, whether or not you believe in whatever else, if a woman is using abortion as a weapon against the guy, whether that's to not have one or have one, it is still reproductive abuse. Know the signs, know the names, say it out loud. Here we go. That's all of the forms of abuse that this website has. We have more, but we're going to do a BRBLOL because I got to go refill this coffee. It's cold. Want to give a special shout out before we move to the next aspect of abuse today. I wanted to give a shout out to the people who voluntarily expressed some of their knowledge and their wisdom or their experiences, because that's not easy. And I think it adds a lot to the stream. I think it helps people who are watching this as a VOD or on YouTube. I think that type of vulnerability and openness is the kind of stuff that helps people to get out of this, to get out of these situations. So I just want to thank you. I appreciate your openness, and I appreciate the value that you bring to the stream and to other people in the community. So thank you. Ooh, that is hot again. Too hot. I'm gonna have to wait a minute. Let's talk about more abuse. Now let's talk about types of abuse. This gives a different list. So I wanted to go over this because there's a lot of different ways that you can be manipulated or controlled. We talked about physical, we talked about emotional and verbal, we talked about sexual and financial, but there's digital abuse and stalking. See, there's all kinds of, it's like Baskin Robbins. There's so many flavors of abuse. So digital abuse. Digital dating abuse is the use of technology like texting, social media to bully, harass, stalk, or intimidate a partner. This behavior is often a form of verbal or emotional abuse conducted online. They have a ton of examples. I don't know how I feel about going through all these examples. I think I have a hard stop at 9:30 actually. So I don't know how much time we have to go through all this, but all communication in a healthy relationship is respectful, whether in person, online, or over the phone. It's never okay for your partner to use words or actions to harm you, lower your self-esteem, or manipulate you. So this is another one of those caveat. None of us are perfect, and we all suck sometimes, and we say things that trigger abuse or previous abuse. We say things that trigger trauma, And we do things that get taken the wrong way, or we do things that get taken the right way because we just suck sometimes and we're animals at heart. This is, I think, what's more important about abuse is a pattern of abuse. If you're looking for perfection in a relationship, you're not going to get it. Somebody's going to screw up. And guess what? They're going to screw up again. And they're going to, on a long enough timeline, they're going to screw up enough times for you to have said you've had it plenty of times. There's 365 days in a year. That's 365 days to screw up with somebody. That's a lot of days. That's only 1 year. If you're together for 50 years, you got a lot of screw ups coming your way. Just FYI. Just want to let you know. That's what I don't want to build up here and be careful about is an unhealthy desire for perfection in your relationship, and then a terror that you're in an abusive relationship because your partner has said or done some things sometimes or once or twice that have met some of these criteria. Now, does that mean it's okay? No. But there's a difference between, hey, we're going to talk about this and we're going to handle this later. And when this is done, and we're going to talk through it and make sure it doesn't happen again. You're going to express how it made you feel. You're going to express why you don't like it. And hopefully your partner is able to maturely absorb that information and change their behavior. Accommodate that need, soothe that trauma, even if it's not perfectly, and hopefully they can let you know what they think their limitations are, and then you can move forward amicably. And if they can't, and you can't, then we have to end well, and that's okay. Not all relationships are meant to last forever. We're not all diamonds. Only diamonds are forever. It's not even true, probably, but the relationships are not always forever. And it's okay for you to end in a relationship because of poor behavior that they weren't really willing to change. And it doesn't mean that every ex you've ever had has been abusive. Pathologizing every one of your relationships, it's not a good look, by the way. It's not good for you and your self-esteem and your mental well-being. And it's just, it doesn't help. It's not helpful because in every relationship where it's not worked out, there's culpability usually. If it's not abusive, there's culpability on both sides. And even in abusive relationships, I would argue that you should be talking to people ahead of time. We should be teaching our children ahead of time what to look for. We should be talking to each other. We should be talking to our sisters, our brothers, our friends about this and keeping that dialogue open so that people don't fall into that. And we should be calling it out when we see it. And we should also have the courage of our convictions that if we say we're not going to be abused in relationships, we leave. Whether we feel scared or not, we get the support that we need and we make it happen. In a perfect world, all those things would always happen. It's not a perfect world. No relationships are perfect. Don't over-pathologize every one of your relationships. That's kind of my PSA about all of this. It's like going on WebMD because you have a headache and finding out that you have 3 different types of cancer, and then one of the tumors is actually an alien egg that's been laid inside your head, and it's going to start the apocalypse. You can overread a lot of this stuff, and you could really get into it and then be terrified that you're in the worst of situations forever. And it's not really always true. So be careful out there. Don't WebMD yourself out of a relationship, and don't pathologize just because somebody sucks and they didn't really want to change. Maybe they were just immature. But if you stayed in that relationship and didn't address it and it continued to escalate, yeah, that's probably going to turn into an abusive one. Also, always be aware, you could be the abuser. Talk to somebody. Find out. Call me crazy. Have somebody play devil's advocate. Soundboard. These are all important things. So here's some types of digital abuse. And this looks very small. Let's make this a little bigger. Telling you who you can and can't follow or be friends with on social media. Like if people follow you on Instagram and, you didn't even ask them to, and then your significant other tells you to unfollow all of them because I said so. Send negative or insulting or threatening messages or emails. I mean, this is that's kind of no-brainer. I don't really understand some of these because it's right, but that's the same as verbal. I don't know why you just called it digital. It's still the same. But here's one that's unique. Looking through your phone or checking up on your pictures, texts, and phone records. That's kind of like a little bit of what we talked about before. Make sure you're hydrating. I am hydrating, Jay. I just am hydrating with coffee, decaf. But thank you. I appreciate the reminder. I do need a channel point for that. You're right. You're right. Using any kind, this is specific to digital abuse, using any kind of technology such as spyware or GPS in a phone or a car to monitor your activities. That is very specifically digital abuse. Oh, I just got to get my ring. I took it off to eat that buffalo chicken. Stalking. This is something we have not talked about. Stalking occurs when someone watches, follows, or harasses you repeatedly, making you feel afraid or unsafe. It could be somebody you know, a past partner, or a stranger. It could be a former coworker. While the legal definition of stalking varies from state to state, examples include showing up at your home or workplace unannounced or uninvited, sending you unwanted texts, messages, letters, emails, or voicemails, leaving you unwanted items, gifts, or flowers, calling you and hanging up repeatedly, or making unwanted phone calls to you, your employer, a professor, or a loved one, using social media or technology to track your activities, spreading rumors about you online or in person, manipulating other people to investigate your life, including using someone else's social media account to look at your profile, or befriending your friends in order to get information about you, waiting around at places you spend time, damaging your home, car, or other property, hiring a private investigator to follow or find you as a way of knowing your location and movements. Now, again, this is landmine territory right here. A lot of these behaviors will occur from victims of abuse, because a lot of cycles of abuse require demeaning one partner, demanding they go away, and then waiting for them to beg and grovel and find their way back, and then finally accepting them again and repeating the cycle. Form of abuse: during health issue, take advantage or controlling after saying that they are helping you. Oh man, for sure. That's like medical abuse, basically. You don't even have to be in a relationship with somebody to experience medical abuse, but it's worse when it's in a relationship, because it often takes the form of like a caregiver relationship, and then it becomes controlling. BRB? That's okay, Jay. Go for it. But I want to be really clear about this, because I had to deal with this yesterday. I had to explain this to somebody who's not in the psychological world, but they're in more of the legal sphere. And they were like, well, what about the constant messages, the showing up on when they're not wanted, and like dropping off presents that they didn't ask for? And you're right. If that type of behavior was truly unwanted, and it's been said to them many times, listen, if I'm mad at you and I don't want you around, do not give me anything. And if I tell you I don't want to talk to you anymore, stop messaging me right away. Just do it. Just don't message me again. If that's been made clear and the boundaries have been set, and then that person continues to push the boundaries, sure, I'll give you that could be stalking. But when you train someone to beg, you train someone to find other social media platforms and ways to communicate with you, you train someone to try to shower you with gifts so that you talk to them again, by rewarding that behavior over and over and over again with nice messages, ignoring the fight you had the night before, talking like nothing ever happened, accepting said gifts and saying nothing about it, demanding those gifts later on, expecting those things to happen, expecting them to talk to you because you opened up one or two other social media platforms and you blocked them on ones just to make a point. That is not the same. And somebody who knows just enough about psychology, just enough about this stuff, they're just knowing enough to be dangerous to gaslight you and tell you you're a stalker, when in reality, if you walk away from them, the stalker, I'm talking about the person, you're being called a stalker, when you actually don't respond and you actually leave them alone, they can't leave you alone. That's the proof. That's your litmus test. If you're a stalker and they don't want you talking to them and they block you, for instance, and they say, I don't think we should talk, and you say, okay. And then not even a day later, they're messaging you and saying that they can't help themselves, that they forgot and they want to talk to you anyway. Yeah, no, you're not the stalker. Guess what? The dynamic of the relationship is fundamentally broken, And this is the poisonous cycle. But you are in the victim position of that. You're not the abuser. You're not stalking somebody. This is for people who are maliciously going after their partner and they're gaining an upper hand. If you want to really look at it very simply, and this is, and I'll probably end with this because there's 7 examples of what abusive women look like. You can pretty much assess if something is abuse or not if it is a pattern of behavior that is used to leverage more power and dominate the relationship. That's all. It can all come down to control. If somebody's being a jerk or a twerp or a bitch, but they're not like dominating you and they're not making you have anxiety about behaving in a certain way and they're not making you feel less of a person, they're just annoying sometimes, chances are that person's not an abuser. You're not in an abusive relationship. Do they say things that are abusive sometimes? It depends on, if they're from Brooklyn, probably. But it doesn't mean you're in an abusive relationship. I just want to be clear about that. You want to have a litmus test if one person's being abusive or the other. Look who can do whatever they want. Look who can't do anything without being scrutinized, punished, or yelled at. Look at who has no fear. Look at who's always terrified. Those are really clear-cut litmus tests as to who's the abuser and who's the victim. So let's end off by going over something a little funnier, I thought, because this picture's hilarious. 7 examples of what abusive women look like. When it comes to being abusive, it seems like men get all the focus and blame. This is, oh, by the way, in that first website that I was going over, I had to change the language because it was always assuming the man was the abuser and the woman was the victim. And it did not identify itself as a website for abused women. It just said victims of abuse, but it always assumed women. So there's a lot of sexism still on the internet about who can be abused and what abuse looks like. And that's why I thought it'd be interesting and important and relevant to bring this up, because it's a bit of a rant, but bear with me. Or don't, I don't care, because this is important for people who need to hear it. This is largely because men are usually more obvious about their abuse, such as becoming physically or verbally abusive. However, abusive women are much more common than most people might think, actually more common than men. Because of the different forms of abuse typically used by women, abusive women are harder to recognize. Women typically abuse in subtler, less outward ways than men that can be difficult to spot. These ways usually are hidden and don't leave obvious wounds like a black eye. Why it's so easy to overlook an abusive woman? Not only do women abuse in less obvious ways, but men are also typically very reluctant to admit to anyone, including themselves, that they're being abused. That is extremely true. Men don't go to the doctors voluntarily as often as women. Men don't go seek mental health help as often as women. They are reluctant to admit that there's anything physically wrong with them. They're reluctant to think that there's anything emotionally or mentally wrong with them. So it is a lot harder for men to admit to themselves or others that they're in an abusive relationship. And there's a stigma. Being abused by a woman can be emasculating and embarrassing, which, remember, humiliation is one of the key concepts of abuse. So it's a no-brainer. There's a built-in extra, like, abuse plus when a man is being abused by a woman because of that social stigma and humiliation. And since many men view themselves as the dominant one in the relationship, it doesn't seem like it should even be possible. Because of this, most men will never tell anyone about the abuse and go to great lengths to hide it. However, if you're a man in a relationship with an abusive woman, you're far from alone. Abuse by a woman can be sneaky and chalked up to just the way women are or being fickle. But no matter how it's explained, abuse is abuse, no matter who's doing it, even if it's a woman. So what abusive women look like? What do abusive women normally look like in real life? Here's 7 common abusive behaviors practiced by women along with descriptions from real life partners. Number 1, angry and yelling. We all yell from time to time, but a woman who's abusive is going to do it much more regularly and often without a clear reason. One of the things that can make a relationship especially abusive is the uncertainty of when you're going to quote-unquote get it. Obviously, this behavior is not exclusive to just women. Number 2, demanding. Being demanding isn't just about having unrealistic or unfair expectations. It can also be about being selfish. This person's working with has an abusive wife who's very demanding towards him, from expecting him to get her a glass of water when she wants it, to putting her gym bag in the car for her, to taking care of her horses every day. You name it, she demands it of him. I actually know a guy who got with a woman who expected him to take care of her horses, which were like 7 miles away from his house, and he had to go every day and take care of them twice a day. Ay, 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 that guy. In these cases, there are often repercussions if demands aren't met. She may get angry, call him names, pout, give him the cold shoulder, or withhold sex. Whatever the response, its purpose is to condition or train him to do what she wants when she wants it. And that's what I was talking about with withholding affection. Giving a cold shoulder, ignoring, not responding, all those things are ways to punish your significant other. Controlling. This is one that can be hard to outwardly spot and is often just something that you feel more than you can see. Controlling behavior can look like it's just being concerned about your well-being, like wanting you to call while you're away from home. That's the, I just want to know where you are. It's late. The motivation, however, is not the concern, but the need to have power by being in control. Where are you? Look at this number one question on here. Did I call it or not? Where are you? Who are you with? Who are you talking to? Who are you texting? Some partners even go as far as monitoring their spouse's social media or tracking their whereabouts through apps. Don't ever let yourself get tracked with apps. If you voluntarily do so for safety, good for you, but you're weird. But yeah, just don't let yourself, don't get tracked. Demeaning and belittling, number 4. Number 4. Sadly, it's not uncommon for partners to put each other down and just excuse it as humor. Abusive women can be very skilled at demeaning their partner in this kind of way. Name-calling or put-downs are common forms of this. This gives some examples that are more like, you're a little a-hole or a little turd or whatever, or calling somebody the R-word. But actually, there's one way to demean and belittle a guy as a woman that I find to be the most insidious. And I see this often. A woman will come home and start talking to their partner about another guy that they know of, heard about, read about, or met through a friend or whatever, and how successful they are, and how great their business is, how great their income is, how smart they are, how they've gone to do this, they've done that, they've done this, and they've done that. Always with this insinuation that their partner would do well to mimic this person that is not them, rather than support them in their dreams and be a Jackie O. I always talk about this in relationships. You want to be a Jackie O. Jackie Kennedy always supported John through his dreams, and ultimately she became one of the most famous women in America, and certainly will go down in history as one of the most important at that time. But you want to be a Jackie O. You want to be supporting the person that you're with, whether you're a man or a woman. You want to support your partner and in what they want to do. But what you'll see this a lot with women who come home and they'll talk about other guys. It's very demeaning. It's very manipulative. It's very belittling, but it's clever. Clever girl. Because if you try to bring it up as to why do you always do this? Why do you bring this up? What I often get from responses from my clients is that they get basically gaslit. Like, what are you talking about? Like, why are you being so sensitive? Why are you taking it so personally? I'm just talking about somebody I met today. I'm just talking about an article I read. It's all very innocent. I thought maybe it could help you. I was just trying to help you. You're not trying to help. If you're trying to help, you'd be at their office, or you'd be in the morning helping them get ready, or you'd be brainstorming with them on ways to make more money. You're not trying to help them. You're trying to control them. You're trying to manipulate them, demean them, humiliate them. Remember when I said you can always be the monster? A lot of women don't realize they're being monsters when they're like this. But I know a lot of wives that do this. Number 5, the silent treatment. This one is a relationship killer. It can seem normal that after a fight, partners will not talk for a while, but the silent treatment is much, much more and much, much worse. This is an intentional cycle and choice to not communicate in order to hurt the other partner. It can go on for days or weeks. This person says, my wife is very verbally abusive to me. She says horrible, hateful things and has rage issues. She dumps all over me and then won't talk to me for a week. I feel helpless. I refuse to engage because I'm a Christian, and to me this behavior is very ungodly. Bruce. I hope it's Bruce Campbell. He's the man. But that sucks, and that happens a lot. The silent treatment is wielded by women. It's more than a cold shoulder. It's a timeout. Like I said, it's a punishment. You're grounded, and that is abuse because you are trying to control the relationship. Number 6, undermine. Here's another one that can be tricky to spot. Undermining behavior can be excused away with statements such as, I didn't hear you say that, or I forgot. It can look accidental, like a simple mistake, but when there's a regular pattern of it, it's usually not. This can eventually lead to gaslighting as well. You never told me that when you actually did, or I told you about that, you didn't listen when she never did. Over time, you start to doubt yourself and your own sanity. That is gaslighting. It makes you feel like you're the crazy one. So, and I have a personal example of that where I have said things that were extremely important to me to a partner, and it was really, really bad, and it was really important, and it was really important that they paid attention and then they could be supportive, and instead it was ignored for months. And then when I was angry about it and said something about it, I was basically told, you never told me that. I didn't know that. That's gaslighting, my friends. That's one of those times where it's very obvious. It's time to go. All right. Number 7, withhold affection and sex. Abusive women commonly use this one to hurt or punish their man. While sex should really only happen when both partners are feeling close to each other, willfully withholding sex to exercise power or hurt is wrong and damaging to the connection between partners. Again, it's different if you don't feel like doing it. That's your prerogative. But if you're doing it as a punishment, like you're grounded from it, and like you hear people say this and it's on television and it's in movies and things like this, and it's been so accepted by culture for a long time, that's abuse. It's wielding affection as a punishment for undesired behavior. We are not dogs to be trained. Whether you're a guy or a girl in a relationship, it's not okay. What to do about a woman who's abusive? So this has get professional counseling help. Please do. Set boundaries and limits on the treatment you'll accept. Please do that too in the meantime. And please leave. Feel free to leave. It's okay. Relationships are not always meant to be forever. It's okay. So get professional help, get a support system together. And again, this is not just to get rid of a woman who's abusive, but also get away from a guy who is. Get your support system lined up. Silently, deceive if you have to. Get your support system lined up. Plan your exit strategy. Seek professional help. Get that counseling. And then leave. You can set boundaries in the meantime, and you may or may not be comfortable doing that. You may or may not get flack, but get out of there. Make a plan, get a support system, and get the hell out of there. Feel free to call the hotlines, the warm lines that are out there for victims of abuse. I hope that this was informative for some of you. I hope it was informative for more of you than not, because I hope that you didn't know about every one of these things. Because that would suck. That's the more you know. I really do. I hope that this was good for people to learn, and maybe you could tell somebody that you know about this. Maybe you could have them take a look at the live stream later. But be careful out there and be vigilant about your relationships. Remember that it's about control. That's the big thing. All of these things are about humiliation, manipulation, coercion, and control. Don't let yourself be dominated by your partner, whether that's a roommate, friend, family member, coworker, boss, professor, teacher, student, your own kid. Just don't let it happen. It's okay for you to not be abused. You don't have to be. It's okay. You may be comfortable with it, but I know you're not happy about it. Reach out. Send me messages on here. I'm going to put the ending stuff up so you can take a look at the social media. Again, feel free to go to my website, holisticlifeconsultants.com. Put in a message in the I am ready, and I will contact you as soon as I possibly can, usually within 24 hours, at The Life Coach Insta. If you want to DM me on Instagram, you can obviously DM me on Twitch, and you can find me and subscribe on The Life Coach if you like this information and you think that more things like this will be helpful for you, your friends, and your family. I want to thank everybody who contributed today. It was a great stream. It was a great time to talk about something that I think is really important. Thank you guys for joining us today, and we will be back tomorrow at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the only real time. And we'll be talking about... What are we talking about tomorrow? Tomorrow we're talking about discipline. Woohoo! That should be fun. It will be fun. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See you guys.